Good afternoon. It's just into the afternoon on Sunday the 21st of February. Yeah, it has been a thoughtful couple of days. That's why there wasn't a video out. Because I think there must be something viable to do. Given that I kind of feel that our entire existence is kind of held hostage. And a phone call with my best mate, Dean, kind of crystallised it. You know, I'm not sure if anything can be done about it. But we're kind of being held to ransom for our time in this existence form. Hopefully, I'm hoping there's some kind of point to it all, but I'm also resigned to the fact there probably isn't. And it's all down to control of resources. And it seems to be all down to class. Or at least a level of fiscal rarefication. You know, in that it's largely down to money. But it's generational money that wants to hold us, you know, in a holding pattern for our own lives. And that seems ridiculous. It doesn't take that much effort with modern technology to feed a bunch of people. It certainly isn't going to take, you know, say to feed 50 people, it doesn't take one person's 40-hour week to generate enough calories and nutrients to keep us all alive and healthy. You know, once a house is built, it could, if it was built properly, it could house people for hundreds of years to come. There are people living in houses that are hundreds of years old. They're still viable. Of course, there are more people. So, you know, you need more houses. But even that's fixable. I've got to get some better exercise. Which is what I say every time I climb up that hill. So yeah. So there's always someone trying to hassle you from above. And sometimes there are people on your level that hassle you equally. You know. And we spend so much of our time trying to get to somewhere where we can enjoy life, and it vastly, you know, is a crappy ratio of enjoying yourself and doing things you don't enjoy. And you'd think that humanity, given a good 10,000 years, shall we say, of civilization, we still haven't got to that point where, for the most part, most people don't enjoy being part of civilization with all its expectations, all its outmoded social mores. You know, all its cages that we continually overlay. You know, socio-economic cages, religious cages, money cages, authority cages. And yeah, I think people have had a good long time to realise that they're not free. You know, you're free if you're, you know, clever and you're middle or upper class. But if you're working class, you're kind of hemmed in. You're kind of told what to do for the majority of life, and then you retire, and then you're still told what to do. Yeah, the acceptance of captivity is not only bred into us, but it's bred into the people around us. And the people around us will police us if we look like we're getting free. So yeah, there are things that you have to do to be part of society. And whenever anybody steps outside that or escapes it, you know, they're subject to ridicule or, you know, some kind of oppression for being different or for escaping it. You know, and working class people don't really want to forgive other working class people for having escaped it. And the working class people that escape feel no urge to turn back around and free a few minds. You know, especially in the music or entertainment or sports, you know, wherever, you know, personal exceptionalism, which is not part of the middle class or upper class mindset, whenever you exhibit personal exceptionalism, like in art or sport or, you know, you're brought before the wealthy and your betters, ridiculed, given enough money so that you are an example to others of, you know, what trying hard could look like. But for the vast majority of us, trying hard isn't going to get us anywhere. It's just not. You know, the best you can hope to be is maybe a factory foreman or a middle manager, you know, well, where they'll give you enough money so that you can improve your own personal situation, and your fear of losing that situation is what drives you to put pressure on your fellow humans. It's a very much a rigged game. But here's the good news. Those things that keep you imprisoned are just ideas. They're, you know, reinforced thoughts woven into the landscape of your life, wherever you happen to live. Whether it's North Africa, you know, Wisconsin, whether it's Central Europe or Northern Europe, there is always some method of control. And we live in an era, in the 2020s, where unions are all but absent. So the idea of the workers collectively bargaining with the people that own the property, Karl Marx's definition of property, like machinery, factories, farms, land, resources, that's all gone, because you're now only allowed to go on strike if you're facing illegal working conditions. And much in the same way as corporate lawyers work, corporate lawyers are there because other corporations have lawyers. So you get into like an arms race of words and legal terminology. And in the same way, human resource departments are the response to unions. Oh, well, this is legal, so you can't legally go on strike. Your ability to withdraw your labour as a group has been severely hampered by the fact that if you're being paid above minimum wage, if you're being treated within the law, you're not really allowed to go on strike. And if you do go on strike, then your boss is capable of firing you. And in an era where there are lots of people unemployed, they've got plenty of people to pick from. People will choose to survive rather than boycott working for giant corporations. That's just the way it is. And that's the way it has evolved. The legal weapons systems of the people that own everything have had to be upgraded, and people have made money from advising them on what they can and can't do and get away with it, but they're still getting away with. I'm looking at you, the people that chose to poison the people of Flint, Michigan and other places. I'm looking at the people that decided to build a pipeline through reservations. I'm looking at the people that maintain the value of diamonds, De Beers in South Africa. All those people act within the law, and therefore it's fair game. But what we don't know is that they kind of make the laws. People like them are the politicians. People that would be employed by them in the future are currently politicians, and they're just lining their nests. Now, In order to unpick that, you would need a bloody and total revolution. And that's what they're banking on. I know that we can't be organised because we're all so disparate. We look at each other and see the differences in accent, in class, in income, in religion, in skin tone, in belief systems of all kinds. And all that is, race is a belief system. You know, deciding people are less important to you or less important than you because of who they love or the music they listen to or the clothes they wear is an abstraction. It's a very profitable abstraction. It really works out for the people that maintain it through media. And yeah, it's all, you know, you should definitely take a step back from it and look at what the world really looks like, you know, or listen to people that have seen what the world really looks like. The idea that in the 21st century people go to bed hungry. The idea that if you've got a problem with a leader who's not following the rules, like Gaddafi or Saddam Hussein, I'm not saying those were good people, but they weren't towing the line. They weren't doing what the people with the money wanted. And then in order to get them to do what they want, which was really weird because we knew it wouldn't affect how they viewed the world, we just bomb and murder all the civilians. You know, at no point do we think of taking out a powerful person surgically. Never. We go after their families, their children. We bomb them at weddings. You know, we convince other ordinary people at the bottom of the food chain to put on a uniform and let the wealthy and powerful spend their lives. Literally like a currency. How many troops can we have die in this engagement? How many can we afford to, you know, allow to get killed? How many times can we withdraw fire support or artillery support from a unit of, say, Marines on the ground trying to clear a village because they believe what the people at the top have told them, and that, you know, these people, ordinary people, more like themselves than the people that send them there, you know, need to die. You know, they make a calculation far, far away and decide that no, we're not going to medevac this 19-year-old kid who's missing legs or going to die anyway. Is it worth the chopper fuel to get that kid back only to have him die on the chopper? You know, those are the considerations that these people work out years in advance. How many of your lives can they spend without there being astonishingly bloody retribution when the people whose lives don't mean anything to them, you know, decide not to do it anymore? And we've been conditioned out of it. You know, as soon as mass communication became available, from the moment somebody could print a pamphlet so it could be read by 100 people, like Thomas Paine's Common Sense or The Rights of Man, this idea that it's up to somebody in a nice suit as to what you get to do with your life is ridiculous, and it's an idea. That's all it is. That person has the idea that having a lot of zeros attached to a digital file at their bank gives them every right not just to decide what you're going to do with your life, but when they go somewhere and they actually encounter a working class person, they realise, you know, once they leave their estates and their lovely houses and their private islands, just how amazingly fucking dangerous human beings are. Just how much all that keeps them in check is an idea. That's it, an idea. If those people didn't want to do it and didn't want to obey the police, as we've seen in recent times, there's not a lot the police can do about it. Because the police are working class too. You know, the police put blinders on the fact that somebody in a lovely suit and a silk shirt is going to decide how many police officers can die in order to bring this situation under control. They'll actually sit down and work it out. And one of the things that's making them even more aggressive, by them I mean the supremely rich, is that they know that if they keep on doing this, keep on reinforcing their, you know, little circle of power and how much money and resources they can wield to get their will obeyed, which plugs into a very basic bit, almost a lizard brain thing. Even simple animals like birds can realise that abundance indicates something to the opposite sex and makes them viable breeding partners, and that's largely all it is. And then they get us to try and ape that. Oh, I want a nicer house too, then I'll be worth more in the eyes of my fellow citizens. I want a big screen TV, bigger than I can actually see, because it will be impressive to the next door neighbours. I want to order something from Harrods so my neighbours can see the van pull up. And yeah, not only does it reinforce, financial might makes right, but it also, those people that have escaped to a financial level where they have a degree of freedom, they will be disliked by the people they've escaped from. If a particular bird that communicates with the opposite sex in breeding season by feeding other birds tries to feed a bird that is more alpha, it will be met with ferocity. So if an alpha bird tries to feed another alpha male bird, the other alpha male bird will go absolutely mental and attack it. Although there is no reason for combat. There is no reason for, these birds don't hunt. They only fight for social reasons. And we don't need to fight for survival yet. We will do if we keep this shit up. It's trying to get over the thing. We will need it. We will need to fight for survival, and we'll be fighting each other. We'll be fighting our neighbours. Could end up fighting our own relatives just for the means to survive if we don't get our fingers out. So, that said, that's all probably pretty obvious. World fucked. People in charge are being dicks. They don't know why they're being dicks. They probably don't care to examine it too closely, because all the other people around them will attack them, like those birds feeding each other. They won't help each other because, being helped implies weakness for some reason. Yet we're all helped, we're all taught, we're all shown, we're all cared for at the beginning and end of our lives, if we're lucky. So yeah. Let's take a look at right now. Here's just one example. This is one of the reasons they've all come together at this time and place. But it's all right. Nobody's watching. I won't get in trouble for this. I won't get censored for this. I'm just saying what's happening. If I said it in music, nobody would care. Everybody would buy the single and go, yes, you're so right, and then ignore everything and not read a book and not find out for themselves. But here's a classic example. The Oxford vaccine for COVID was going to be open source. It was good. Formula, the ability, how to make it, all that sort of shit was going to be given away. And what happened? Well, what happened is that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, supposedly a bunch of philanthropists, hung a load of funding over the heads of the Oxford labs and bought the vaccine and gave all the details to a big pharmaceutical company. So now, going from open source, African countries can make it themselves, at the local cost of making it, possibly the cheapest way of doing it. No, that's not going to happen anymore. Now it's going to be sold by a big pharmaceutical company to those countries, and those countries are paying twice what the EU are paying because the EU got in first. And that's a government funded developed vaccine being sold to a pharmaceutical company at the height of a pandemic. So if you think wealthy people have got your interests at heart, I'm afraid you're deluded. They don't care. You're a number. You're a collection of data which they're selling. You're a collection of secrets which they'd sell. All over. Every time you give your credit card to a company, that's their option for, taking everything you have, if they wanted to, at any time they decided to. The people at the top, like in the Matrix, they are guarding all the doors, they are holding all the keys to this reality. That's all it is. It's a form of reality that we've all bought into. The new car smell, the flashy clothes, the nice house without which you can't find a decent mate, the good job, the good prospect. And we're all imprisoned by it. This idea that we've got to have nicer things. This idea that we've got to buy those things in order for them to be nicer rather than make them ourselves, rather than recycle them. And I think that's why movies like Fight Club and distractional things like science fiction and music and rock and roll and punk fire the imagination but do little else. When you come down from that high, you're still in your cage. And despite the fact that a lot of those musicians are just saying, look, the cage is an illusion. Bill Hicks, it's just a ride. The ride goes up and down and round and round, and sometimes very scary and sometimes it's dark, but it's still just a ride. So, that was a long time ago. That was like 30 plus years ago that Bill Hicks said that, and he was riffing on something that somebody else had already said, all the way back to Plato's cave. What you perceive to be reality is not necessarily so. But if what you perceive is how you have to deal with things, what if you can change your perception? What if you could become like well, they're not making any new land. How much land do you need? How much land do you need in order to be able to persuade yourself that you are free in a very real sense? How much? And like a soap bubble, can we deal with understanding a new reality and interact with the existing reality with the very, very tiniest part of ourselves? So armed with this, yeah, you might have to go do a job. But the second you come home, you move back into the environment. Once you close that door, walk into a self-defined reality where you are aware that you exist alongside a buggered system. It is. It's a system that's going to kill us all eventually. Now, you can have a little bubble of just you. I walk in the door, or I set aside time to look at something beautiful, and for that moment, the entire reality is that beautiful thing. When I'm playing with my child, or talking to someone, or talking to a good friend, I am in a different reality. But that reality, like a carefully blown soap bubble, needs to be maintained and made larger. So you need to increase that reality. You need to draw a line further out, a circle of influence that you can reach further out into. Maybe it's an hour a week where you listen to a record and think about what your life is doing. But you understand that whenever you walk in to the society that's built around you that didn't have your consent, that you didn't sign up to, you're walking into enemy territory. It's enemy, you're walking into an enemy reality where people work until they die. They die young, younger than they need to. If you didn't eat poisoned food and drink poisoned water and put poisons into your body, like we all do, how long would you live? How long would you live if you'd always ate like that? If you weren't threatened and stressed all the time, how much longer would you live? So it becomes not well, I've got to work to live. That's fine. Until we come up with an alternative, until we can actually manifest a new decent reality in the real world, which is doable. It's doable if you just had 5 people. It's doable if you're one person almost. It's doable if just people would join your reality and make it stronger. And that's the thing. It's not an if everybody, and it's if a lot of people. And I think that's something that people that live as their ancestors live because they choose to, people that live wild in the woods, people that are part of travelling communities, and it really was a thing in the 80s with the convoys of travellers. They decided a new reality. So the people in power had to invent a new reality to oppress them more. They came up with new laws that made it illegal for them to park a van on somebody's land or government land or anywhere. So you can have a van and you can live in the van, but where are you going to put that van? Because it's going to have to exist on at least the van's footprint of land in order for you to be able to do stuff. You know, the same, you know, nightmarish reality that took away industry and then hassled people when they were unemployed. So we farm out your jobs to another country where they'll work for peanuts and then treat you like dirt because you no longer have a job. We'll close down the industry that you worked in quite happily and bought houses and played with the reality, and then we took that industry away because it wasn't profitable enough for the government, because it was nationalised. You know, it's all these things. They do a thing and then they create a demonised community of poor people. The second they have, you know, and the second those people get together and decide they're going to do something different, they move in on that and destroy it, because of challenging that reality where those people are at the very top is the most dangerous thing to them. An idea, I mean, even a piece of music sometimes. I mean, God Save the Queen by the Sex Pistols was made illegal because it challenged, in a year when, you know, the love of the royal family was at its peak, in the 25th anniversary of Queen Elizabeth II getting to the throne, they put out God Save the Queen and then played it in public. It got to #1. There were enough people buying it, and the BBC refused to play it. So yeah, they'll do all that kind of shit to you every time. The second it looks like you're going to escape, they'll clamp down on whatever it is. They'll clamp down on the music. Something will come up. They'll destroy your leader. You know, they'll investigate you. They'll use every possible in to get at your new reality, like the Black Panthers. There's a new reality of black power. And they killed those people. Moved a bunch of people that rented a house and wanted to live as they wanted to live, albeit in a fairly extreme way. But, you know, they killed those people. Even fictional characters, or possibly fictional characters, get murdered and destroyed. Or they destroy themselves, you know, through despair, that they have said things can change. Now, you can't obviously change the world with a song. You can't even change it with a YouTube video. But understand this. The bars are made of paper. They're perilously thin. And if you understand that, you're a little bit more free. You know, 15 years ago, Rant Media stormed into my life, and it was a different way of looking at things, and it was different enough that I felt some hope. And then I started Rangers, you know, sort of like Malcolm McLaren going across to New York, seeing the New York Dolls, coming back and creating the Sex Pistols. We're life punks. We look at things differently. We expect things to get taken away from us. We do interesting stuff. Spend some of our time creating things that weren't there before we were there. But maybe, just maybe, we need to start creating some kind of commune. But maybe we need to do that on the quiet. You know? People like Greta Thunberg and even Extinction Rebellion, I'll give them that, are slightly ahead of their time. And they're looking like a very much stood out nail. Now, let's see what lessons from history we can take. Are we going to be like the Viet Cong and build like a metaphorical tunnel system that's impossible to penetrate? Or are we going to stand up in lines and try and fight them as they would fight us? Because I'm telling you, even if you got into an armed conflict, the people you're fighting are the people like you. They're just as much in a prison as you are. So it makes no sense. They're quite happy to get working class people to go bomb other working class people to teach them a lesson about standing outside of the norms and refusing to accept a certain level of reality wielded by the very rich. Wars aren't fought by governments, and they haven't been for a long, long time. You know, for a long, long time. I don't think there's ever been a government that has gone, now we will go to war. There have been wealthy people that stood to lose money, and they worked out how many working class people they could spend to get that advantage back. Think about that. You know, those are the people that create ideologies like consumerism and capitalism, and even the kind of Stalinist communism, because people just working to help out each other doesn't work. That hasn't worked since the Stone Age, because there's always someone that wants more resources than they would actually garner themselves. I'm going to turn around. You know, that will manage to motivate a bunch of other people and say, you can have the crumbs from my table if you go and kill these people that are standing in my way. If you posit for a moment that Jesus was real, what do you know, the response is obvious. Here's a guy saying we should be nice to each other and look after people while they're poor and build them up and make them strong so they can love each other and take care of each other. Oh, and by the way, you don't need to give money to churches because that's not where God lives. That guy's got to go. Martin Luther King Jr. or Dr. King Jr. marching on Washington with 1 million people saying, look, we're asking nicely because I'm holding back the tide of rage. Gone. You know? Even a little change that threatens the supremacy of one group that's got sufficient resources to put you down. Like Martin Luther, ironically. I think the Bible should be in German so we can all read it. And that's heresy, despite the fact that Jesus didn't speak Latin. So why aren't all the Bibles in Aramaic? That would be truly, if you believe that Jesus was divine, a thing which they didn't really believe until 400 AD at the Conference of Nicaea. They had a meeting about what they should believe. So that's not a belief. That's not anything handed down by a supreme being. That's a bunch of people getting together in a room and then murdering enough people so that it's too costly to say no. You know, creating a system where if you leave, you're an apostate. Which is where I think, you know, the Jewish faith has got an edge on it. You can't be an apostate. You can not believe in God and still be Jewish. But then they had to come out with revision 2 of Judaism, where it's all led by this guy. And then they don't follow the guy. You know, Islam, respect for all. Cherish your women. Listen to them. It's all gone because it doesn't follow a narrative that wealthy people can endure. Because those people might go, well, you know what, let's go. I don't want to be under the thumb of X person just because of the position they were born into. And we've still got this weird deference to people. There aren't that many working class politicians. There just aren't. You can probably name them in a short video. You could probably name them in 2 minutes, including the UK and America. And probably you could name all the working class politicians in 2 minutes, including some of the countries of Europe and Australia. They're not us. It's not us in charge. It's not democracy. The people aren't in charge. The people get to vote. And then look what happens when it doesn't turn out the way wealthy people want it to turn out necessarily. You know, you get nearly, you know, wealthy people try and incite poor people to riot. You know. Adolf Hitler rose to power on basically motivating poor people and saying, you won't have anything, you won't even have what you've got, and giving them some sort of stupid reason. But he was funded by the wealthy, the elite, to sow discord in amongst working class Germans. You know? Stalin did the same thing. We'll sow discord, or we'll just hunt down the really working class people that say shouldn't shit be better than this. And it really did play out, just like Animal Farm. 25 million people dead. I mean, they will really murder us by the million to keep it as they were. They were talking about literally carpet bombing that bit of the Seattle Free Zone. That was on the cards. Because a bunch of people said, no, I don't need to. The Franco Civil War in 1936, where Germany, as a fascist power, gleefully helped out and tested out its weapons on people that believed that a government should be there for its people and should look after its people. You know, if it was fair, I'd be happy to work to my utmost. So yeah, It's all very messed up. So, but that's it. All it is a version of reality, a set of ideas that they manage to pass on to us via media. You know, look, who owns the media? I mean, I'm talking to you on media that's owned by Google, but because no one's watching, that's okay. There are some democratic places on the internet. You know, archive.org, very cool. The Electronic Frontier Foundation. But they're doing stuff and nobody cares, really. Few of us care. You probably care if you're watching this video, and I am rambling on a bit. So, that's what happens. To reinforce the idea that you are not in charge, they will kill people like you, and people that look like me, and people that are, you know, different skin tones to me, and love different people from me, and, you know, worship different gods than me. But know this, you know, if you're not talking directly to your God, and you should, which is what Islam has over us. You know, if you really are a religious person, you should be able to have a direct hotline to your creative spirit, whichever that is. Speak to them direct. Don't hire people to speak to them for you. That's rubbish. That's insane. It's an omnipotent, omniscient God. God has 3 minutes for you to say, I don't think this is right. But the thing is, unless, you know, we have to break Green's law, we have to violate Green's law here. Green's law states that if your plan begins with if everybody, it is doomed to fail. And what I'm going to do, and you're welcome to join me, is start an idealised commune. An idea. A fake reality commune. The commune doesn't exist right now. It could do. It's a potential commune. It exists in a quantum state. And our actions and our thoughts can bring it into realisation. Even if it was like a metaphorical commune, then that still exists. It exists because we've talked about it. It exists when two people move in together and go, look, well, let's half the rent and let's plant crops in the garden and put a few solar panels up. That's a commune, immediately. But what you can't have is a commune beholden to another person who's got more money than you. The commune has to have been built equally by the people that are there. And a community that works together and looks after its elderly, a community that educates its children, you know, can start to sidestep. And we've got to be very careful when we do that, because it's a very dangerous idea. That's why they murdered a bunch of Black Panthers, because it looked like they were going to manage that with their own education system, their own looking after their children and stuff like that. They challenged it, they challenged the reality and died for it. So we've got to think of a better way. We need more input. But I'm planting a flag in the ground today. This is the commune. This is the headquarters of the commune. It exists in my head, therefore it exists. It is a quantum commune. And what we've got to do is see if we can't, you know, collapse that waveform or extend that waveform in a way that benefits us. Until we can create something that, you know, through that soap bubble skin into the other reality, where money has to be made and things have to be produced and people have to work. Well, they're going to have to go through that soap bubble very carefully so as not to pop the reality that we've carefully created behind us every time we go to work. And, you know, the only way that you're going to create something real is if it makes sense to the most amount of people. And you leave instructions for how to do that. I'm sounding like a self-help book. But yeah. So, come and visit the commune. I'll try and give you good reasons to do it, is what I'm saying. And maybe we can extend our reality field into a reality that puts a roof over our head and food on our table and education and care into our children and care of our elderly. But it can't be religious. It can't be political. Well, we've got to keep those wealthy, status, entitled motherfuckers out of it. We can't take their gifts, they're too expensive. We can't take their ideas. Again, they're too expensive. We need to build this from the ground up. And that's where I'm going to leave it for today. Thank you for watching. Do take care. And remember, we really got to end greed, end poverty, end hate. We're really all going to die. See ya.